Hey sports fans, welcome to Bracket Busters. We're here live at the USA Cafe in Smyrna, Georgia. And I'm your host, Elias Pires, and it's time for the Ncaa tournament.
I'm Vincent, and it's the 75th anniversary of the NCAA Final Four basketball tournament. When you look at some of the great players, Cassie Russell, Bill Bradley, Pat Riley, man, Texas El Paso, the first black all-team win in 1966. But I'm going to turn it over to my man, the young
Vincent, Kennington L. Smith III, March Madness, one of the best times of the year. Bright lights, big shots, buzzer beaters, Cinderella stories. Here we are in 2013. There are no set favorites. Every team has a fair shot at the title. Let's get this party started.
Guys, my most earliest memories of the NCAA tournament is Fly Slammer Jammer against NC State, Jordan hitting the game-winning jump as a freshman against Georgetown. Vince, what is yours?
I got to say, hey, since the tournament is going to be 20 miles down the road, we're broadcasting live here from US Cafe in Smyrna, Georgia. I'm going to start out in the Omni when Al McGuire, the head coach of Marquette, won finally his national championship with the Marquette Warriors.
And me being the younger member of the panel, my memory came a few years back when Brad Stevens, the up-and-coming coach at Butler, led a renegade squad of unknowns, guys like Ronald North, Gordon Hayward, against the mighty Duke Blue Devils and Mike Krzyzewski. Gordon Hayward shooting that half-court shot just rims out. It was a heartbreaker for Butler, but what a tournament it was.
Yeah, that was one of the most memorable times. Butler being a mid-major, making it to the Final Four. We may just see that this year, but let's get right into it right now. We're going to go to the Midwest bracket, and we're going to talk about Louisville. Vince, what do you have to say about Louisville in the Midwest bracket?
Well, basically, my only question was Louisville, should they got the #1 overall seed? Me personally, I didn't think they deserved it. He gave it to them because they had, 12 minutes of good basketball against Syracuse in the Big East Final. But at the end of the day, they earned it. Rick Pitino, a lot of respect. And the only reason I'm talking about Louisville, because if you know back in the day, me being a Memphis State fan, Louisville's our arch rival. But the Cardinals are the #1 seed, and to me, they are in the toughest bracket. When you look at the Midwest bracket, it's loaded. Oklahoma State, Duke, Memphis, Michigan State. You got some star power in this bracket.
Absolutely, I have to agree with you. I think that Louisville actually did deserve that #1 overall seed. They're the hottest team coming into the tournament, and sometimes that gives you that #1 overall seed. They ran through the Big East tournament. There are a lot of great teams in the Big East. They turned a 17-point deficit in Syracuse into a 17-point win.
But I'm not going to too much give nothing started today. What you saying they was the hottest team, I disagree with you. The hottest team was out there in the West Coast, the West #1 seed, Gonzaga.
But while Gonzaga was out there beating Loyola Marymount and Santa Clara, the University of San Diego, Louisville was out there beating Georgetown, Syracuse, Marquette. And they have something that a lot of teams don't have nowadays. They have senior leadership with Peyton Siva. They're coming in high, and that's why I think they're the #1 seed.
Vince, how can you say that Louisville is not that? Peyton Siva is 2 years now Big East tournament MVP. The last person to do that was Patrick Ewing.
But at the end of the day, when you look at Louisville, all I'm saying is they got a #1 seed for the last 12 minutes on Saturday, what they played against Syracuse. Let's look at the reality. Say Louisville, when they came back and beat Syracuse, and Syracuse would have won that game by double digits.
That didn't happen.
But would Louisville still been the #1 seed? I don't think so. Overall, no way. But at the end of the day, they are the #1 seed in the Midwest Regional. They are in the toughest bracket. So, hey, it's where it go. But I'm still saying, let's don't disrespect Gonzaga out there in the West Coast as being the #1 seed out in the West.
We're going to get to Gonzaga, but when you look at Louisville, you look at their heart. Peyton Siva, 2 years now, Big East tournament MVP. And then you have Russ Smith, Mr. Dynamic, do-it-all. Then you got the big man in the middle, Dang.
But at the end of the day, you know what they talk about Louisville is that no question about it, they one of the best defensive teams in the country. That's why they so well. They lead the country and how they turn people over in turnovers. But the thing I worry about Louisville, they still don't shoot the ball well. If you notice, the players who was playing well from early on, Shane Bohanna and Wayne Blackshear, have been struggling. It was word on the street and rumors that Rick Pitino was going to put them on the bench. And I'm right?
But it's all about bright lights and guys stepping up. And two guys that stepped up in that Big East tournament was Harrell from Tarboro, North Carolina, and Weir, the kid from New York. They was ready for the bright lights, the shining moments, and that's what happened. That last 13 minutes of the Big East Championship in Madison Square Garden is going to elevate them into the tournament. Don't you agree, Kenny?
I do, and something that you need to consider, since they're #1 seed, they have a get-right game in the winner of the NCAA versus Liberty game, and then after that, the winner of Colorado State, Missouri, they can get right that game before they have to play someone like Oklahoma State or Oregon in the Sweet 16.
See, that's my whole problem. They're in the toughest bracket. When you look at it, you look at Louisville again, I'm going to say they're not a well-shooting team. But you look at the teams in this bracket. Creighton with Doug McDermott, who averaged 22 points a game, a pretty good shooting team. Michigan State is a real physical team that can play with Louisville. I'm not even going to say about my Memphis Tigers. We had them down in December by 18 points in the first half. Then you talk about Oklahoma State with the outstanding sensational Marcus Smart. There are teams that match up real well in this bracket against Louisville, and I don't see Louisville coming out in the Midwest. I'm sorry, even though they're playing in Indianapolis, which is what, about 90 miles from Louisville, I don't see the Cardinals. Simply because they're still not a good shooting team. And we know it. While y'all looking at me, Russ Smith, their best outside shooter, is still a streaky player.
Well, you brought up a good point that they're 90 miles away from Louisville, which means once they get down into the Sweet 16, the Elite Eight, they're going to have home court advantage. That's something that you don't always see in the tournament. You playing on a lot of neutral sites. Sometimes the crowd won't be into it. You're 90 miles away from your hometown. The fans are going to come up. The crowd's going to be into it. You got Rick Pitino, one of the best coaches in the country, someone who I'd take in the battle personally if I was a player against any coach in the country. So I think
at the end of the day, you look at the teams that's in the bracket: St. Louis, Oregon, Oklahoma State, Michigan State, Memphis, and Duke. And Duke beat Louisville in the Battle of Atlantis, the preseason tournament before the year started. Those teams match up real well against Louisville.
But right now, that means nothing. It's all a race.
Absolutely.
It's bright lights.
That's why it's the 75th anniversary.
And tell me this, Vince. What does Louisville lack except outside shooting? Defense wins championships, am I correct? And what I seen happen the other night against Syracuse was they shut down a very good Syracuse team. They got up in their cookie job, and Syracuse did not know what to do.
I really don't understand why you say a good Syracuse team, because that was a Syracuse team that the previous weekend lost to Georgetown.
How good is the Big East? To be able to go to Madison Square Garden and do it in 4 days and make the finals in the last.
But hey, man, I'm just going on what you're saying, though. You said that they beat a good Syracuse team. I'm just saying Syracuse struggled on the final weekend against Georgetown, lost by 18 points on senior day.
And what they come doing during the tournament against Georgetown?
But you know, anytime.
Answer the question, Vincent Turner.
What you say?
Did they win or lose the next time that they faced Georgetown? What happened?
They beat Georgetown in a close ball game, no question about it. But at the end of the day, you can get hot in playing in a tournament like that in 3 to 4 days. But out in talking, we don't really say because the tournament starts. And I'm just saying, my personal opinion, Louisville is not going to come out in the Midwest. That's just my opinion. Too many good teams.
But looking at the bracket, Vince, Colorado, Missouri, they could easily handle this.
Missouri's got an excellent team, very excellent point guard in Phil Presley.
But they've been
even
back,
though they struggle
from a very weak league in the SEC that hasn't prepared them for the likes of a Louisville, Vince.
I have a question. When we talk about tournament selection, right, and we want to sit up here and teams that got in and got out, all of a sudden what irritates me, okay, you bring up a Missouri team, right, that's got a pretty good point guard in Phil Presley. They get in.
What else do they have?
But can I finish? You're going to tell me that they played in the weak SEC. Right now, you just said, and you recant on your statement, that don't really matter. Right now, you in the tournament. Right now, it doesn't matter what you did in the regular season. And right now, you looking to get ready to play for the big lights. And all right, fans out there? And all right, Force fans out there? That's what you're going to do when the lights come on tomorrow night, baby. That's what you're going to do on Wednesday night. That's what you're going to do on Thursday. So I don't want to hear about what they played in the week league, because at the end of the day, you must have been something because you got selected among the best 6 to 8 teams in the country.
Vincent,
bottom line.
Can I be your vice president 2016?
Let's talk basketball right now, man. It's the 75th anniversary of the NCAA.
We're getting excited here.
Yes, sir.
Well, right now we're going to move on to our second #1 seed, Gonzaga. Some people thought maybe Miami should have deserved that #1 seed over Gonzaga. But Gonzaga, 31-2, #1 ranked team in the country. Mr. Vince, you smiling because we got into a little heated argument about Gonzaga
a couple of days. I'm going to ask you, so do you think Miami still should have got a #1 seed?
Absolutely. You look at the conference that Miami played in. What more do they have to do? In the ACC, won the regular season title and the conference title. Beat Duke, beat North Carolina, beat NC State. What more do they have to do?
Miami had some bad losses, though. Florida Gulf Coast.
But you look at Gonzaga.
Miami had some bad losses, though. Florida Gulf Coast.
Hold on, Vince. Did Florida Gulf Coast make the tournament?
They did.
Is that a bad loss?
No. They won the best 6 teams in the country.
Are you a diehard Memphis fan?
Yes, sir.
What's the only tournament team Memphis beat?
The only Southern Miss. Well, they didn't beat
no Harvard University.
Yeah, Harvard University. You correct.
You look at Miami. Going back to Miami, they won what some people might call the toughest conference in the country in the ACC, both regular season and tournament. You look at Gonzaga. Gonzaga's ranked #1. They started off the season in the top 10, and they did nothing but sit back and let all the other teams knock themselves off and creep into that #1 spot. They did go 31-2, and I commend that, and they did win their conference regular season and tournament title. But when you look at their wins, their top wins came against teams like Baylor, who's not even in the tournament. And you have a team like Oklahoma State, a 1-point win early in the season. You look at Miami, they beat North Carolina twice.
That's true.
Beat NC State. They beat top teams.
That's true. But at the end of the day, when you look at Gonzaga, it doesn't matter what conference you played in. They went undefeated in their league, and they won their conference tournament. And it's a reason when these voters throughout the season vote for these teams, Gonzaga answered the bell. Whether you like it, whether or not, and see the history of Gonzaga. This is a school that came out of nowhere in the late 90s. That's why they're getting respect now. Don Munson built that program, and then a young man named Mark Few continued it. And when you look at Gonzaga, even though you said they played Roast Beef Steak the other day on the radio show, 100 Yards of Football, but the tournament is going to start, and I guarantee you, they might come out of the West and win the whole thing.
Let's not get carried away. Fans, if you watching, if Gonzaga is lucky to get past Pittsburgh, I guarantee they will not get past Wisconsin in the Sweet 16. Guaranteed.
Okay, I have a question.
Wisconsin has to get there first, but we're going to get into that in a minute. But when you look at Gonzaga, they got a legit 7-footer that's going to be a top pick, 5 pick in the NBA. A guy that's averaged, 17 points, 8 rebounds and 4 blocks a game. That's a menace in the middle for this tournament. And then they got some very good guards. They got the Paganos kid from Canada that shoots about 40% from the three-point line. They got Bell that plays very solid point guard. And then they got the Elias Harris that's a pretty good power forward that can play inside and out. And then they got the kid Hart who walked onto the team and lives up to his name, is the heart of that team.
You made a point about Missouri, and you said that their conference did not prepare them for the style that maybe Louisville will play. I'm not sure that the West Coast Conference prepared Gonzaga for the style of play that they're going to see in their region. You have teams like Kansas State, Ole Miss, Wisconsin, Harvard, Notre Dame, Ohio State. Those are legit teams from Big Six conferences. So I don't know if Gonzaga is necessarily prepared to play those teams.
But so you just answered your question. They're in the West. Who there in the West scares you if I'm Gonzaga?
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin scares me?
Wisconsin
and then, what did Wisconsin lead average in the Big Ten in scoring? 50-some points a game?
What did their opponents average?
Physical.
What did their opponents average?
Okay.
Less than that.
Okay, but they played in the Big Ten, which I already told you. I think it's very overrated.
It don't matter if you score 12 points in the game. If your opponent scores 11, you won the game.
But let me ask you something. Again, who scares you in the next bracket? You gonna tell me Wisconsin?
Ohio State.
Now Ohio State. I give you some credit for that. That's the only team I think could beat Gonzaga. When you tell me Pittsburgh, you tell me Ole Miss,
New Mexico?
you tell me no.
New Mexico?
No, I'm going with Gonzaga because they run 9 deep.
Why can't New Mexico?
They're running 9 deep.
They run.
I like New Mexico.
New Mexico, their conference has the highest RPI. That kid Tony Snell plays defense like Stacey Augmon, but his offense is sort of like LeBron James.
When you look at Gonzaga, I'm sorry to say, they're just not ready for their style of play. They went 31-2, and I commend that. They won 31 of their 33 games. But when you look at the rigor of their schedule, it is not even close to the teams in their bracket.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say this: you high on Wisconsin. After the show tonight, we could put some apples. I'd take Ole Miss and Marshall Henderson and be upsetting Wisconsin in the first round.
You know why Wisconsin may have trouble, Kenneth? They play in that Big Ten. They've been beating up on each other all year. How many bullets do these Big Ten teams have for the rest of these teams?
But I'm going to combat that with the fact that they know what it's like to play elite competition. They looked in the face of Indiana. They beat Indiana twice or 3 times this year. They beat Indiana 12 straight times. They played against Ohio State. They played against Michigan. They played against Minnesota.
You're absolutely right. And correct. But Kenton, as we've been arguing all season long, I said that the Big Ten was the most overrated conference. I said Indiana was overrated. I said Michigan was overrated. And Michigan State. And when the tournament starts, you're going to see by this time in 2 weeks, the Sweet 16, I guarantee it's not going to be but one Big Ten team left. And that maybe be Ohio State.
It probably will. Because Wisconsin got a very tough Ole Miss. Marshall Henderson, he is what the tournament is about. A kid that loves the bright lights.
Marshall Henderson will score 30 points, but it'll take him 30 shots to get to 30 points. Wisconsin will slow the game down. They'll make Marshall Henderson work for every single shot. They'll frustrate Ole Miss. Ole Miss used to running around a lot. Wisconsin will slow it down, slow the game down. It'll be in the 50s and 60s. It'll be an ugly game, and teams are not used to playing an ugly style of basketball. We're going to move on to the South region. Kansas, the #1 seed, regular season and tournament champs in the Big 12. What have we seen out of Kansas?
I think Kansas is going to roll through this region. I think right now the Jayhawks are coming in form. they kind of struggle here and there, and I think it was because of their backcourt play with Elijah Johnson. But a guy that's really came into focus has not been Jeff Winter, their center, but it's been his sensational freshman, Perry Ellis. He's really given them another nod offensively and also defensively. And when you look at Kansas, they got 3 big-time players that can get you to the Final Four. There's Ben McLemore, there's Perry Ellis, and there's Elijah Johnson. Go with the big man in the middle, Jeff Whitney. And I think they got one of the best coaches in the tournament in BSL. I see Kansas coming out of the South. I don't see Florida. Number 3 seed, Florida is erratic. You look at Georgetown, I just don't think outside Otto Porter, who's one of the best players in the country, I don't see him having enough offense. Really, another team that I look at that division, a lot of people said Michigan might be able to come out and South, but I think Michigan has been rated all year long. But then the thing, I think Kansas is going to cruise to the South.
Do you feel that North Carolina will be able to match up against Kansas?
No. North Carolina struggled all year long. They just not had it. I think one of the big keys is that a guy in my hometown, Leslie McDonald, who was a guy that was on the brink of really coming into play, really having an outstanding junior based on coming out redshirt, that got hurt early. And for some reason, also, too, I think Marcus Page, starting freshman point guard at North Carolina, has not really replaced Kendall Marshall with the production that North Carolina had last year. If you notice, North Carolina, the reason that North Carolina got strong in the tournament is because of their young man who's now playing point guard for the Phoenix Suns, Kendall Marshall, right?
Kendall Marshall.
Marcus Page has not been that guy.
Ncaa and Harrison Barnes.
But at the end of the day,
been playing his best basketball since the last 10 games of the year into the tournament.
But I'm going to use your cliche here on YouTube, here at US Cafe. You always say that when the tournament starts, it's about guards. The reason North Carolina is struggling, number 1, the young man that's running the show out there in LA, and Larry Jewis got the UCLA Bruins as number 6 seed. It's got the Bruins where they at. Marcus Page is struggling. That's the bottom line, and that's why North Carolina is an 8 seed.
But since North Carolina has switched to their smaller lineup, they've been a little hot of late. I'm going to tell you something. North Carolina is going to be dangerous. Another team that's going to be dangerous that you disrespected is VCU and Shaka Smart. That is a dangerous team, and VCU is going to challenge Kansas City.
And I agree with you. The only thing I worry about Shaka Smart now is that, what do we always say? You live by the 3, you die by the 3. And here recently, VCU did not shoot the ball well in the Atlantic 10 Conference tournament. And right now, when you look at it, when VCU is not hitting threes, they're very vulnerable. Go back to the Battle of Atlantic tournament and ask Duke what happened early on in November.
What about Michigan, guys? What about the Big Blue?
Well, Michigan has got 3 players. Excuse me. Michigan has got 3 players that you need to get to the Final Four. That's Trey Burke, that's Glenn Robinson III, and Tim Hardaway Jr. The thing that I don't like about those 3 players, they've been inconsistent. And go back to 2 weeks ago when they had a chance on their home floor to win the Big Ten. And what did they do? They went to the foul line and missed 5 free throws. And their 3 top players missed 3 1-and-1s. That was Glenn Robinson III, Tim Hardaway Jr., and Trey Burke. And at the end of the day, when I look outside that's why I say Michigan is not going to go nowhere. They're not the Michigan of '89 that won it all with Glenn Rice Jr. and Sean Higgins and Lloyd Vaughn. And your homeboy, Mr. Elias Pires, Ramel Robinson. They're not the '89 Michigan Wolverines.
Well, this is going to be my first upset. I'm actually taking South Dakota State over Michigan. You look at Michigan, 3-4 in the month of February, 3-2 in March. They're not coming in very high. And then you look at South Dakota State.
South Dakota
State.
They got a nice player. I know who
you're talking about. Nate Walters.
Yes, sir.
In the supplemental players.
23 points a game, 6 rebounds, 6 assists. 4 other players on the team average 10 points a game. 4-game winning streak. They coming in hot. Michigan coming in
I can see that happening. Nate Waters is a real good basketball player, man. He's one of what you like to say, Adam Morrison. That's going to be Adam Morrison 2013. Nate Waters can play.
When Butler came into the tournament, like as I mentioned a few years back, no one knew who Gordon Hayward was, and he turned into a lottery pick. It's going to be that kind of
Gordon Hayward is an athletic basketball player.
It's going to be that kind of
Nate Walters is not an athletic basketball player, and his supporting cast is not good enough to beat a Michigan. We're talking about a very athletic Michigan. We're talking about a Player of the Year candidate, Trey Burke, that could run that pick and roll with the best of them. And then we got Glenn Robinson, his big body.
And they got beat in the Big Ten tournament last week by Wisconsin by 8.
The Big Ten's been beating up on each other all year.
And that's what I'm saying is, we're going on these tournaments, but at the end of the day.
But who does South Dakota have other than Nate Walters that will be able to deal with this team?
I like what Kennington just said. I like Nate Walters. He's one of them guys that can score. He's a guy that can score the ball.
In the past, we've seen one-man teams making all the way. We saw Steph Curry take Davidson to the Elite Eight. He was the one.
So you're saying Nate Waters is Steph Curry?
He can have that kind of
Stephen Curry.
Stephen Curry.
Yes,
so we've had that kind of coming. He can have that kind of coming out party.
I don't think he's athletic enough. He's not like that off the dribble.
Whenever we bring up tournaments, whether it be the NFL playoffs, the NBA playoffs, MLB, what do we always talking about? The team coming in hot is usually the favorite.
Right. I like South Dakota State. I've been following them.
It's coming in hot, and Michigan's coming in very, very cold. 6-6 in their last 12 games. And a disappointing showing in the Big Ten tournament.
And I always say the Big Ten has been the most overrated conference in America, and I'm not going to bag out. Ohio State is that team.
Where do you get the Big Ten overrated?
You're going to see here real shortly in the next 72 hours. Ain't that right out there, the Ohio State fan?
Oh, we're taking it all the way. We're there on the 8th.
And now we're going to move on to the East region. Indiana, who's been the perennial favorite most of the year long, they got 2 Player of the Year candidates, Tyler Zeller, Victor Oladipo, 4 players on the team with 1,000 career points. And then, of course, Miami, who I believe should have been the number 1 seed, the number 2 seed in that bracket. So what do we see from that side?
I'm going to shock the world right now. This is the bracket where I'm going to pick my upset. And I'm going to take an 8th seed. The last time an 8th seed went deep in the tournament and won it all was Villanova in 1985. Y'all remember Harold Jensen, Ed Pinkney, upset the great Georgetown team with Patrick Ewing. I'm taking NC State, the Wolfpack out of Raleigh. I like this team. C.J. Leslie, Lorenzo Brown, Richard Howell, 2 kids from the local Atlanta area. And if this player comes to play, it's a sensational freshman, Rodney Pires and Mike Gottfried. I think based on this region, because I'm not sold in Indiana, I think they could be the surprise team to come out of this region and shock the world. The HC, the NC State Wolfpack.
This is a very interesting bracket. You have a lot of interesting teams. You got teams like Syracuse, Montana, Butler, Bucknell. Butler is actually my surprise team in this bracket. You have Brad Stevens, who's an up-and-coming coach. He took his Renegade squad to 2 straight championship games. And then you have, they're the only team in the country who's beaten 2 teams ranked number 1 at the time. They beat Gonzaga on that buzzer beater, and then they beat Indiana on that neutral court. Butler is they're a scrappy team. They're going to fight for everything.
But the only thing I don't like about Butler, they remind me a lot of VCU.
Butler reminds you of VCU?
When they shooting
shooting
the ball, Rodney Clark, the transfer from the University of Arkansas, when he's shooting it well, Butler can beat anybody in the country. If he's not shooting the ball well, that's when Butler struggles. Butler is a very good outside shooting team. When they're not hitting outside shots, then they struggle. They remind me a lot of VCU as far as offensively shooting the 3 balls.
And they got a guy on their team that reminds me a lot of Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, a guy who's going to strap like a garbage man, who's going to do all the little things.
Nice player.
Roosevelt Jones, he's going to be that type of guy for Butler. He's going to do all the little things, and I think that Butler has a chance to make it to the Sweet 16 and not the Elite 8.
I don't see Butler getting past Bucknell because since that IU game, Butler's gone 10-6. Then they wasn't hard in the A10 tournament. They really got outplayed.
This is true. This is true.
By St. Louis.
But every time tournament season rolls around, they all these extra pick teams like Belmont and Bucknell, people who fly under the radar. But when tournament season comes around, all of a sudden they're the dangerous team. I don't see that being the case.
You know why
Bucknell got Mike Muscala. I don't know if you guys have heard this guy.
But you know why I kind of have to agree with Kennington with Butler a little bit, because right now they got, I think, probably the second greatest coming since John Wooden as the head coach. Brad Stevens is that dude.
But Brad Stevens has lost in the first round of the tournament.
But that doesn't matter. But look what he's done with Butler, with average teams, back-to-back Final Fours, and he was a half a court shot for winning it all against Duke. I got to agree with Kennington. Butler with Brad Stevens, I think it's going to be one of the surprise teams in the tournament. But I still don't pick them coming out of the East. I still got NC State, but I wouldn't be surprised if Butler makes some noise.
I think Mike Muscala is going to dominate that paint for Bucknell in that game. But guys, how about the enigma of the East, Marquette? Buzz Williams has this. It's not his best team, but it's probably his most scrappiest, and as far as the fundamentalist, most talented team he has.
Don't like Marquette. Not the same team from last year. Lost probably one of the best players in the country, who's right now starting for the Dallas Mavericks, Jay Crowder, who's right down the road from Villa Rica,
They were
Georgia.
3C coming out the Big East, man.
But these not the same Marquette team. No, I don't see Marquette really making a lot of noise. That's just my personal opinion. They don't have a player. Vander Blue is a nice piece. But at the end of the day, they lost one of the best players in the country, who was Big East Player of the Year last year, Jay Crowder. That's just my opinion.
I always compare Marquette to like a high school team. They don't really have a lot of big guys. They're real scrappy. They spread the ball around. the thing about Marquette is they're going to have to get through Miami if they want to make some noise in this tournament, and I don't think they will. I think Miami is actually my pick to come out of the East, but you got Shane Larkin and those boys. They playing the best ball of their careers, and they also have something that Louisville has similar: veteran, senior, and junior leadership. You don't see that a lot in college basketball with the one-and-done rule. They got senior leadership. Those guys are composed. If they get down, they won't stress a lot. So I got Miami coming out the East.
Miami has 4 seniors in their starting lineup, and a sophomore, Shane Larkin, that's pretty darn good.
But the only thing that kind of concerns me about Miami, I understand they got experience, they got senior leadership, but I look at their backcourt. Shane Larkin is a good piece, no question about it. Durant, Scott. But at the end of the day, to me, they're not the quickest backcourt in the country. If you look at the games that Miami struggled in, they struggled against teams that had quicker backcourt people that was fast. And if you want me to go a step further, Memphis had them last year with the same backcourt because they could not handle the quickness. That's what really worries me about Miami. Everybody's saying Sean Larkin, no question about it, he's a great player. But when he plays against somebody that's quicker and faster, he has problems. And I see Miami really having problems with a team like Butler that's got a quick guard and Ronnie Clark. You understand what I'm saying? So at the end of the day,
you're saying Ronnie Clark's a quick guard.
He's a quick guard where he can get a shot off. Where he can get a shot off. Yes, where he can get a shot off.
You think he could take a step back and shoot a jumper then?
No, what I'm saying, Rodney Clark game is the type of guard that gives Miami problems. Miami is not a good defensive team to me personally in the backcourt.
Individually, they're not.
Right.
As Coach
he
likes to use the fist.
You answer my question about Miami. And at the end of the day,
they play great team defense, though, and they're good against the pick and roll.
I'm going to give you one game that really told me about Miami and their backcourt. They played against a Clemson team. Remember that game? It was a low-scoring game. But did Miami, their backcourt, have problems with Clemson backcourt that night? Did they not? Case closed.
Who's not going to have problems with a backcourt that the players are under 6 feet? It's like playing against a bunch of Chaz Williams on UMass. You can't win that matchup.
At the end of the day, I go on your cliche, Mr. Perez. You said in this tournament, backcourts wins championship games. I'm just saying Miami, everybody on Shane Larkin and Durant Scott, I'm saying I'm not sold on them coming to Atlanta. Right down there, 4 blocks away, down in Atlanta because of Shane Larkin and my man Durant Scott. I don't think they're good as far as quickness defensively.
I've seen this Miami squad beat Duke, beat UNC twice, beat NC State, win the ACC regular season and the conference tournament. They're coming in hot, one of the hottest teams coming in. I still think they deserve the #1 seed. I think they would use that as motivation being the #2 seed. And look at all we did. Yeah, we're still not a #1 seed. We're still not good enough to the selection committee's odds. Well, let's show them how good we are. So I got Miami coming out the East.
Yeah, and Vince, something else you gotta look at Miami. Yes, their perimeter defense, their guards aren't quick, but when you look at the guys behind them, you got big Reggie Johnson. That's not a small guy. Probably be a linebacker in the NFL.
Foul prone.
Nah, he's really got out of foul prone since his senior year.
Foul prone.
Where's he foul prone at this year?
I'm just saying, Miami, to me, they're going to break your hearts in this tournament. I've taken NC State, upset AC coming out of this tournament. They remind me a lot of that Villanova team that won it in '85. Harold Jensen, Gary McClain, Dwayne McClain, Ed Pinkney. When you look at NC State, Lorenzo Brown, Richard Howe, C.J. Leslie, a guy that's going to play in the league, and Rodney Purvis. Same type of team, same type of setup. NC State, to me, is going to rock and roll out of the East.
You're talking about a bunch of inconsistent players this year.
They said the same thing about Villanova, but when Villanova got in the regional, they beat a North Carolina team that had Kenny Smith in '85. They beat a Maryland team that had the great Len Bias. They beat, when they got to the Final Four, they upset my Memphis Tigers with Keith Lee. And you know what they said about Villanova? They didn't have a chance against the king, Patrick Ewing. And what happened? They shot 80% in the second half and beat Georgetown 66-64 and went down as the greatest AC that ever won an NCAA basketball championship.
So you don't think Miami has the greatest matchup problem with Kenny Cujo against any power forward or center that transferred from Florida 2 years ago that had a lot of injury problems but stepped up this year?
I'm going to move on to my next point. At the end of the day, I'm taking NC State, the Wolfpack, and I'm looking at you too, baby. Take your Wolfpack and put your money. You might take home some money. I'm taking the Wolfpack, baby. Let's roll, Pack.
He doesn't have no statement.
Let's roll, Pack.
Let me protect your
Villanova 85, baby. Villanova 1985.
Hold on, let's step over here to State Farm.
Everybody watching, this is the voice of reason talking. I'll let you tell you right now, NC State will not get past a round of 32. You talk about C.J. Leslie. Look up Victor Oladipo if you don't know who he is. That's the best player in the country, in my opinion. He's going to shut down C.J. Leslie, Yogi Ferrell. Once again, 4 players on their team with 1,000 career points. Tyler Zeller could be the player of the year. Indiana going to pass NC State.
All right.
How good is Victor Oladipo, though?
He's a decent player.
No, let's you don't say decent. That's very disrespectful.
At the end of the day, when you talking about voting for the player of the year,
Indiana go with that guy?
Wait a minute. If you gonna let me finish, when you vote for player of the year, you know that's a regional voting. That's something like favoritism voting. It's all about if your name is on ESPN, Fox Sports, and you know Dick Vitale is gonna pump up Indiana. You know he's gonna pump up certain teams like Duke, UCLA, North Carolina. But if you ask me who's the most exciting player in the country and it means a lot to the team, I got to be biased myself. DJ Stephens, the University of Memphis. That just
doesn't even average 9 points a game.
It's not important. It's you said the player that means the most to your team.
So you take Victor Oladipo off of that Indiana team, and where do they stand?
I don't know.
Not very well.
I don't know.
Memphis is still going to roll through Conference USA because it's Conference USA. And in the Big Ten, you need Victor O.
You asked me my opinion, and I told you who I vote for my best player.
Plays the point, plays the off guard, will guard anybody.
You're not going to make me change my listen very closely here on YouTube. You're not going to make me change my opinion. I'm going to be very biased this evening because you know why? When you look at the 68 teams, everybody going to have their favorite team. Shout out to you, Southern University, to my frat brother for them making the tournament playing Gonzaga on Thursday night. Shout out to you, Jaguars. Let's move on, sir.
All right, now we're going to move on. Before we move on to our Final Four picks, do we have any upsets that we'd like to share with the people watching?
All I can say is I like Belmont, man, over Arizona.
Now, let's start in the South region with that. Where do you see your upset?
Upsets in the South region. Basically, like I said before, I see Oklahoma maybe getting San Diego State.
When I look at it,
I think Lon Kruger's done an outstanding job. I think they got 2 good players, Stephen Pledger and Romero Osby. I think Oklahoma can get San Diego State. I really haven't been sold on San Diego State, even though I know they play in a very competitive Mountain West Conference. But if you look at the second half of the season, they have struggled. And Jamal Franklin has not been that same player when the season opened up.
13 seed, South Dakota State will up in number 4, Michigan. Like I said before, Michigan coming in cold. South Dakota State is one of the best, most underrated players in the country. Nick Walters, once again, 23 points a game, 6 rebounds, 6 assists. He's going to be the difference maker.
I can understand. So now you're going to go with South Dakota State as a 13 seed, but you're going to give me a hassle tonight for me picking NC State.
To win the region.
Okay. All right, I'm just asking. And then you saying Gonzaga's very overrated.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
Who they beating this year?
All right. We here on YouTube tonight, baby. NCAA basketball selection show. You hear him, Gonzaga fans. If you looking tonight, look at this young man's face. What he's saying about your program. Say it one more time now.
Gonzaga beat Portland, Santa Clara, some YMCA team from Sacramento. Like, who do they play compared to Miami?
YMCA. I hope Jamal Franklin didn't hear that. He disrespected his
he just disrespected Gonzaga. You know what I'm saying? He just disrespected Gonzaga.
But what about that Ole Miss and Wisconsin game intrigues me? Wisconsin's on an all-time high. There's something about that Marshall Henderson kid.
I mean, why that gang on the trees? You neither one of them teams are going to be in the mix as far as getting to 32 of the Sweet 16. I mean, I think
Ole Miss can be that dark horse this year.
No way, man.
Nobody wanted to give them credit. Nobody wanted to give the SEC credit.
No way.
They got all the motivation. Every time they look inside of a newspaper, they flip it of why they can't do it. So tell me why Marshall Henderson is the type of guy, land sharp, that could put that team and flow them in the Sweet 16. If any one play can carry their team into this tournament in 5, it's that Marshall Henderson guy.
I'm going to give you one thing about Marshall Henderson. He's a guy, when he's on, he's on. There's no question about it. I look at him as an uncontrollable J.J. Redick. When J.J. Redick played this last year at Duke, he took the same similar shots of Marshall Henderson. But it was always in the flow of the game, in the flow of what Duke was doing. And that's why Duke had a lot of success when J.J. Redick was there. But when you look at Marshall Henderson, I watched Ole Miss play 4 or 5 times this year. He's a guy, he can shoot you in the game, and he can shoot you out of the game. And I seen Ole Miss be up by 18 with him shooting the ball, and the next thing you know, they be down by 2. At the end of the day, I'm just not sold on watching no Henderson.
Motivate his team.
He's not a guy that's going to take your club to a national championship.
I'm gonna make a note.
And I think you see now tonight to even bring up some Marshall Henderson. talking about he can bring Ole Miss to be legitimate in this tournament. That's just my opinion.
I'm gonna bring up another comparison to Marshall Henderson. Marshall Henderson's a lot like Kobe in that when he's on, and when he's off, he will shoot his way back on. He'll score 30 points. It'll take him 31 shots to get there. Wisconsin's gonna slow the game down and frustrate him. And Wisconsin's gonna get there. And y'all being very disrespectful with Wisconsin. Wisconsin's gonna make it to the Elite Eight.
I think one of the Big Ten teams are going to fall in the first round.
And I think it's going to be
Wisconsin.
That final is going to be the Ohio State against Wisconsin to see who's going to come out of that West region, in my opinion.
No. And guys, what about another intriguing game? And another enigma, let me say, Memphis. Vince, that's your team. I can feel your blood boiling right here. They get the playing game of Middle Tennessee, East Middle Tennessee State, or Middle Tennessee State and St. Mary's. Is Memphis that real deal this year? They haven't beat anybody. They got into much like you were saying in Gonzaga, way worse than Gonzaga though as far as the weakness of the conference. Can Memphis be that team to finally get out the first round in Josh Pastner's regime? And take a step back so you don't pop the light or anything.
No, what I'm saying is, why you saying I'm gonna have a boiling blood when you talk about the Memphis Tigers? I mean, I don't have nothing to be proud of this program.
Because years after year, this team has been very good, and they have let you down.
I guess I can't get a word in on my team tonight. But at the end of the day, why should I be upset? I'm excited. We 30-4. We went undefeated in the Conference USA. We won the conference at 16-0. We're 19-0. We got a young man that started at center for us that's from Southwest DeKalb, Shaq Gooden. Hello to your family out there. Hopefully that he can make it back to Atlanta. I like the seed we got. We're the 6th seed. And you know what? When you're in this tournament, you're going to have to play somebody that's tough. You got to play us in front of you. The only thing is I don't think they gave us a favorable draw by putting us in Auburn Hill, Michigan. And if we're able to win that first round game, whoever we play in St. Mary, Middle Tennessee State, there's a possibility we're going to face Michigan State, which is 75 miles from their home school in East Lansing. But at the end of the day, I'm excited about this team. I think it's similar to the 2008 team. I think we're more balanced than we were last year. And all I have to say,
I hear you saying that, but tell me how you plan on getting out of the first round. Thank you for the history, but I want to know how you're going to get out of the first round.
Well, how you talking about planning getting out of the first round? I don't understand what you're coming. And all I can tell you,
the last 2 years, where have y'all gone home?
We lost in the first round to a very good Arizona team.
Has Josh Pastner got out the first round?
No, he hasn't, and that is one thing that's on his resume. He doesn't have an NCAA tournament victory. But if you let me finish and let me get my point in, then I will break it down for you why it would be different this year.
Amen.
Why it's going to be different this year? Because of 2 things. We got a JUCO transfer in Gerard Johnson, who's the #1 player, that's now our best defensive player, and who's probably the best on-ball defender coming into this tournament.
Has he been consistent?
All I can say is he's one of our best defensive players. He's 3rd in the country in steals. And then also, too, Joe Jackson is playing at a high level now. DJ Stephens, who you said is very overrated defensive player of the year.
I never said Stephens.
Are you going to let me finish about my Memphis Tigers?
Stephens is the glue of that team.
Are you going to let me finish about my Memphis Tigers?
In my mouth today,
are you going to let me finish about my Memphis Tigers?
Preach on, pray.
All I'm going to say is this. The tournament starts on Thursday. We play at 1:45. Make sure you make it back down here to U.S. Cafe and get you a nice lunch and get some beautiful service here. Whoever we play, I predict we will win that first round game. And I'm going to say this on YouTube and to all the websites this show going to be posted on tonight. We will beat Michigan State and Auburn Hills, Michigan. And from now, it's on. We will make it to the Sweet 16. And Josh Pastner, why you really up here defending him and really criticizing him? He's 35 years old and one of the hottest.
Can he coach? Let me ask you, you're on camera right now. All of Memphis is watching you. All of the YouTube world. All of China, Europe, they're all watching.
So you got jokes now.
You got jokes. Josh Pastner, the coach, to take Memphis to a championship.
Okay, let me give you a rumor I saw on NCAA basketball news.
I asked you a question.
He can coach because he's the hottest coaching prospect out there right now. USC is knocking at his door. University of Texas is knocking at his door. And if Sean Miller go back to Pittsburgh, Arizona is going to be knocking at his door. Arizona, Texas. And what's the other school? I said USC, 3 of the top schools in college basketball, and they want this young man right now. And you're going to question whether or not he can coach? I don't think Texas has had success over the years.
You're taking recruiting.
The sports fan out there, Texas got one of the premier programs in college basketball last few years. They were looking at the University of Memphis coach. That's a reason. They just don't bring people in and not coach.
Recruiting. But when it comes down to the X's and O, Kenneth, you see Josh Pastner. The game's close against the Gales or Tennessee or Middle Tennessee State. Can Josh Pastner finally pull it off?
Absolutely. These are two teams that don't even deserve to be in the tournament in the first place. You want to talk about YMCA teams. Who was Middle Tennessee beat this year?
They beat a decent Vanderbilt team.
Explain it to him, Kenton.
Exactly.
I have to get help. Explain it to him, Kenton. He just asked you, can Josh Pastner coach? And Kenton answer the question. Say it one more time, Kenton.
Yes, they can.
Okay,
Middle Tennessee
thank
has 28 wins. One of them was against the RPI top 50. 9 of them were against 51 to 149, and the rest were against 151 to the rest. So they haven't played a rigorous schedule. St. Mary's, they're not known for anything more than being Gonzaga's whipping boy in the West Coast Conference.
That's true, but that's the only team they lost to 3 times. They're nobody else's whipping boy.
But what I can't understand.
Tell me this. Tell me this. Just answer this question.
Nah, I'm asking this question. You're whooping me about Memphis being in the Conference USA tournament, but you up there still giving credit to Gonzaga. So I don't understand that. And you giving credit to the Mountain West Conference because they had one good year with teams that's been down over the years like ULV, New Mexico, San Diego State, Colorado State. All of a sudden they have a good year, and all of a sudden you want to proclaim them the Conference of America. But you're going to give my team a hard time because we playing Conference USA. I just want you to explain that to me.
First of all, you're in the wrong conference, dude.
No, I'm not in the wrong conference. I asked you a question. You said that Memphis plays in the weak watered down Conference USA. Kenton been saying it all along during this show. How weak is Gonzaga conference is?
Their conference is weak, but guess what? Their conference
But you
RPI
don't
is
get
10, and you guys are 11. Gonzaga's a good team. They proved it time at time.
But
Memphis is inconsistent. Y'all biggest
We're
win.
inconsistent.
You guys
we went 19-0. We inconsistent. We went 19-0. We won our conference tournament.
What's that word you use? What's that word you use? Whipping boys?
Whipping boys.
Whipping boys? What other team in Conference USA is in the tournament?
None.
How many teams from Gonzaga's?
Zero outside. What's the
St.
team?
Mary's and Gonzaga. St. Mary's shouldn't be in the first place, but you consider that Virginia.
But they beat everybody that was in front of them. If we're gonna talk about Memphis in the Great Conference USA, right? Why can't the Gales get credit for what they did?
No, you the one that started this conversation because you've been all night talking about how Memphis is playing in the watered down Conference USA. Let me rephrase the question to you again, or maybe I need to go down to the store and get you some Q-tips and Kroger. Again, you said that Memphis plays in the weak down Conference USA. All I'm asking you, you said Gonzaga, all this, but Kenton been telling you all night that their conference is just as worse as Conference USA.
You know what,
so what's the difference? Help me out there, sports fans. What's the difference?
We got an audience out here. I challenge
anybody in this bar
to find a good team that St. Mary's beat this year. Who St. Mary's beat this year? They got 3 memorable games. All of them, they got the whipping stick brought to them by Gonzaga.
So now, hold on. Now we're saying Harvard's a great team.
Harvard's in the tournament.
I'm asking you, is Harvard a great team?
They're relatively great to their conference because they won their conference and they are a perennial tournament team.
We took the Ivy League, right?
They got a respectable conference. They got a respectable conference. But you consider that
their conference IPR is lower than both of them conferences that Gonzaga, St. Mary's,
well, you know what?
and Memphis come out. And Vince, you were boiling right now. But you still haven't told me how you plan on getting out of the first round.
Harvard has a better program.
Are you going to do Josh Pastner's? What Josh Pastner does every year, just speed, and playground basketball? Or does he finally plan on coaching?
I'm going to say this one time. Maybe you didn't hear me, and I'm going to say it very nicely.
I'm waiting for my Q-tip.
Well, like I said, we're going to get out of the first round because we bet on it. We got 3 of the best guys in the country, and Chris Crawford. Most MVP in the country.
No, 19 for 35 from three-point.
You asked me a question.
I'm just giving him his kudos. Okay?
Nah, are you going to let me finish? You asked me a question. You said, how are we going to get out of the first round? Chris Crawford, Joe Jackson, Gerard Johnson, and also the most outstanding athletic player in the country, DJ Stephens, is going to come play. We're going to get our first round victory on Middle Tennessee State, and I just explained to you, we're going to beat Michigan State. And Auburn Hill, Michigan. If Michigan State gets past Velasco, then we're going to end the Michigan State's run, and then we're going to be in the Sweet 16 playing in Annapolis.
And one more thing, Harvard has a better, Harvard has a better program than all but 2 teams in the Podunk West, which Gonzaga and St. Mary's played in, and the Podunk South, in which Middle Tennessee State plays in. But we're going to be on the subject all night. Who's in your Final Four? Let's move on before we arguing all night. Who's your Final Four?
Yes, just move on. Because I'm getting hot, man. You know what I'm saying?
We had to get on Vincent Turner. We all know he's a Memphis boy. He gives us heck all year about this team that hasn't beat nobody. But we're going to move on. Right? I see Louisville.
All right.
I see Gonzaga.
See Gonzaga.
Yeah, I see Gonzaga.
What have we been talking about all night?
I see
You
Gonzaga.
Still don't pick Gonzaga.
I see a legitimate 7-footer that can control the paint. I see a point guard that can control the game. I see outstanding shooters. I see the glue guy in the heart. I see Elias. I was about to say my name because we got similar names. Right. Elias Harris, the kid from Germany. These kids can play basketball. It doesn't matter who's in front of them. Gonzaga's a battle-tested team, battle-tested coach, and that's why I'm going with them. And I hate to go. Most people, I'm about to put 3 number ones in there. I'm throwing Kansas out there. They made it last year, lost to Kentucky. They bring back a lot of the same guys. Elijah Johnson's proved. They got the kid from Worcester, Mass. Stop that comes off a backup. Ellis has been averaging 13 points in the last 10 games that you talked about earlier. And then they got Mr. Jeff Whitney in the middle. And then they got Ben McLemore, outstanding freshman, could be the number 1 pick in the NBA draft. And then I'm going with Miami. 4 seniors and an outstanding point guard in Shane Lankin, an outstanding 6-man, and Mr. Gamble, I think will get it done.
Absolutely. My Final Four, I have to agree with you. Louisville, hottest team coming into the tournament. They're going to get through that Midwest Conference, toughest region in the NCAA tournament. Secondly, Ohio State. We talked about it many times. Aaron Craft, the best defensive guard in the country. You know, you'll score 20 points on them, but you're going to work for that 20 points. You might get 21 shots to get those 20 points. And then in the South region, I got Kansas, Jeff Whitley, Ben McLemore, and those boys with Bill Self, one of the best coaches in the country. He's going to outcoach a lot of coaches. And then finally, I have to agree, Miami, ACC regular season champions, ACC conference tournament champions, 4 seniors, something that you don't see in college basketball too often, veteran leadership, and that's my Final Four.
Well, I'm going to say my Final Four out of the Midwest. I'm going to shock everybody. It's not going to be the Memphis Tigers. I'm going to go with the St. Louis Billikens, simply because Rick Majerus left that team last year, died in the summer. Jim Cruz has done an outstanding job. St. Louis is a very deep team, 9 to 10 players deep. I like their point guard and Kosan Mitchell, and I like another player, nice player they got is Mike McCall.
Hold on, did you say St. Louis?
I'm taking the Billikens out of the Midwest.
St. Louis?
Going to the Final Four. That's what I said. The 4th seed, the St. Louis Billikens.
They might not even make it out the first round, but your next pick, Vince?
Okay. Out of the South, I'm taking the Kansas Jayhawks. I got to go with Ben McLemore, the number 1 player that you just said might get drafted in the NBA. But I like Perry Ellis. I like Bill Self. I think he's one of the better coaches in college basketball right now. I'm taking the Kansas Jayhawks. Out of the East, I'm going with the North Carolina State Wolfpack. I'm still going to stay with them as the 8th seed. And my team, they remind me a lot of the Villanova team in 1985. I'm just being honest. And they got 2 kids that's from the North Carolina area. Lorenzo Brown and Richard Howe. Richard Howe went to Centennial. Lorenzo Brown went to Wheeler. You don't think these kids going to want to play back in front of moms and relatives and get here? And they got a pro prospect in C.J. Leslie. That's just my opinion. And out of the West, I got to say this. It's not going to be Gonzaga.
There we go.
It's not going to be Wisconsin. I got to give love out there to my man, Jarrell Johnson, the Ohio State Buckeyes, because I think they got the best defensive point guard in the country, and Aaron Craft and Thad Matta can coach. Those are my 4 choices of my Final Four picks.
All right, guys. Before we sign off, we just want to get your picks for the playing games. North Carolina and Liberty.
North Carolina, A&T, and Liberty. Liberty is 15-20, but once again, my thing is picking the hottest team coming in. Nobody's coming in this playing game hotter than Liberty because they had to win their conference tournament to get to this point. So Liberty over North Carolina, A&T, St. Mary's and Middle Tennessee. I can't believe that these 2 teams are in the tournament to begin with. Once again, I'll restate
that. Your Charles Barkley comment for the day?
Both of them are just undeserving in my opinion, but I'll take...
Oh, come on. These kids are deserving. They play their hearts out.
Middle Tennessee. Middle Tennessee's going to beat St. Mary's. I'll take LIU Brooklyn over James Madison. They've been building a nice little program.
James Madison's kid, they got suspended, right? The best player going.
LIU Brooklyn's been building a nice program over the last 2 years. And then finally, Boise State, who I always saw in the bubble, but I never saw them play. I looked them up. They passed the eye test. They had some nice wins in the RPI top 50. I think they have 5 of their scores. And they're going to defeat LaSalle. So those are my picks for the playing games.
Vince?
My playing game, I'm taking North Carolina A&T over Liberty simply because Jesse Jackson's alumni, North Carolina A&T. Go Jesse. I'm taking North Carolina A&T.
I told you he's going into politics.
And as far as Middle Tennessee State and St. Mary's, it don't really matter to me, but I guess I'm going to go with the team out of the state of Tennessee, Middle Tennessee State. Then when you look at Brooklyn and James Madison, I'm going with James Madison.
They're playing without their best players.
And finally, Boise State and LaSalle. I'm going with LaSalle because they played in the Atlanta team. They're from the East Coast, Philadelphia area. And when you look at LaSalle, you look at the history, they had one of the greatest players ever played college basketball, Lionel Simmons.
Yeah. Me, North Carolina, and Liberty. I'm going to go with Liberty, even though they beat more Division II teams than they beat teams in the top 200 RPI. Middle Tennessee, St. Mary's. I think Matthew D at St. Mary's is going to have a phenomenal game, and I think he wants to get to the bright lights against Memphis and prove that his conference wasn't as weak as people are saying.
Oh, what it is. Oh, what it is.
LIU, Brooklyn, James Madison. James Madison is not a great field goal shooting team, and they're playing without their best player who did a knucklehead move the other night. But he's young and he makes mistakes, and we forgive him. And Boise State and LaSalle Atlantic 10 team came out hot, has experience of VCU and Butler and Temple and playing in tough situations. So I'm going to go with LaSalle. And I want to thank everybody out there for joining us on the Bracket Buster Show. I'm Elias Pires, and I'm joined here
by Kennington L. Smith III.
And Vincent Turner. Go Memphis Tigers. I'll be watching you on Thursday,
Any last words, guys?
145.
Last words. 100 yards of football every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. on 1570 AM radio. Check us out.
Can we see that basketball real quick before you sign us off, producer? There you go, Vince.
What's that? What'd you give me this for?
Take the final shot. Last words.
Well, I'd like to say, first of all, God bless everybody that came out and supported this show this evening. Also, to Kennington for mentioning the plug for 100 yards of football. We air it every Saturday on 1570 WIGO in the local metro Atlanta area, Morrill, Georgia. And also, to the people that supported this show, all I can say is God bless. And to our families, have a wonderful day. And be safe driving home this evening.
Last words, Kenneth Smith III. What a name.
Once again, check us out 100 yards of football. Shout out to the Whitewater Wildcat Lady Girl Soccer Team. Another win. Got a top 10 matchup against McIntosh tomorrow. Let's get it.
And want to sign off here at the USA Cafe in Smyrna, Georgia. Make sure you guys come out to the USA Cafe. Great food, great people, great TVs. Signing off.
See you next time.